Back here on CBS Sports HQ, as mentioned, the Combine is underway in Indy. We have a crew out there, and right now the Tennessee Titans, they are on the clock. And typically quarterbacks dominate these kinds of conversations, and outside of the top two guys, it's really been considered a quote-unquote weak class. So we're all looking at the defense right now. Defensive lineman spoke today at the Combine, and when it comes to defense, one of the prospects in particular that is making waves, that is Abdul Carter, described as a generational talent. We heard from him at the top of the show here, saying that I feel like I'm the best player in the country, and hey, the best player should go #1 overall. If we're getting a look at Ryan Wilson's very latest mock draft, 1 through 10, we still have Cam Ward going #1 overall. Mason Graham actually in that #2 spot. In this draft, he has Abdul Carter going #5 overall to my Jacksonville Jaguars. Hey, we'll take it there in Duval County. And then Shador going #3 overall to the Giants, a team that he has been linked to over the last couple of weeks, couple of months. But let's bring in the guys, Ryan Wilson and Pete Prisco. We are here to talk about Abdul Carter first and foremost. We heard him at the top of the show, gentlemen. He said, I believe I'm the best player in the country, and I think the best player in the country should go #1 overall. Ryan, I'll start with you here. When you're looking at the quarterback class, and we just saw your latest mock as well, where he's not going #1, does he have a case to go #1 overall when you're looking at some of the other playmakers here and the team needs as well?
Hey, Jacqueline, good to see you. Absolutely, he does. I know, Pete, you feel the same way. Travis Hunter, for me, is the best player in this draft class. We know the quarterbacks always get pushed up, but Abdul Carter is only going to get better. He's been playing on the edge for one season, and you wouldn't know it to watch him play because he is so athletic, so twitched up, was an off-ball linebacker until this year, and we spoke to him earlier today, and the edge with which he plays in terms of his personality, it is clear to me that he is only going to get better. I think if you told me he went first overall and the Titans went in another direction quarterback-wise, I would feel great about it. And that's a pick you make, Pete, where you ain't getting fired for taking Abdul Carter.
If you don't draft a quarterback, you take the guy who knocks the quarterback down. It's really a simple formula. You saw the Philadelphia Eagles win a Super Bowl in large part because they knocked the quarterback down. And Abdul Carter is that guy.
Yep.
So if you're the Tennessee Titans and you're sitting there and you don't love either of the two quarterbacks, then you take a guy like Abdul Carter. So, yeah, I could understand him being the first overall pick. I'd have no problem with it. In fact, we're doing a mock. I might take him. I have the first overall pick. I might take him first overall. So I like it. I like the idea of it. I like the fact that he thinks he should be the #1 overall pick. But we have to remind Abdul Carter, if one of the quarterbacks was indeed the best player in the draft, the position value is far greater than what it is as a pass rusher.
And by the way, Jacqueline, we talked to Abdul today, and he looks exactly like Chop Robinson, his former teammate from a year ago. And he said the weird thing about Chop is that everyone in Chop's family looks like Chop. So there's a bunch of Chops walking around, including Abdul Carter, which is sort of funny.
All right. Gentlemen, let's talk about the 49ers because, of course, there's a lot of news and a lot of teams that are making waves out of the Combine, right? And John Lynch making some comments saying that the Niners are working with Brock Purdy on contract extension negotiations. So, Pete, when we're thinking of Brock Purdy and what we've seen from him over the last couple of seasons, and he's been labeled a game manager in the past, and I feel like now he has moved past that, but what do you think the contract could look like for him? What type of money are we talking about for Brock Purdy?
Well, between $45 and $50 million, or maybe even topping out at $50 million. And that's the reality. That's the going rate for a quarterback in the NFL. That's what it costs to bring your franchise quarterback into the fold for the next 5 years. And I think they'll do that. I think they have no choice. And there are people out there that will say that, you know, when you have Kyle Shanahan, you can win with any quarterback. You saw Jimmy Garoppolo go to the Super Bowl. You can take a guy and fit him into the system and it'll work. I don't buy that. I think Brock Purdy showed last year that he deserves to be paid as a franchise quarterback. He's much more than just a game manager. I think the deal will get done. I think they want it to get done. And if you're Brock Purdy and you haven't made any money and you're going to get $50 million a year, you're going to take that deal.
Yeah, he's making $900,000 a year, which you can't even live on that in San Francisco, wildly enough. You're exactly right. He is not a game manager. And last year was incredibly tough because everyone got hurt, and he wasn't the problem. They weren't winning games. The year before that, I thought he quietly played extremely well. And, again, you can say it's all because of Kyle Shanahan and the playmakers. He's still making the throws. He throws with a ton of anticipation, which you have to do in this Kyle Shanahan offense. Now, the deep ball, it's not consistent, and it's not always where it needs to be, but he is doing everything else at a high level. And to Pete's point, Jacqueline, he's going to get paid, and he's deserved to get paid. And if he didn't get paid here, he would get paid somewhere else.
Yeah, and the Niners have a lot of different things to figure out, right? Because they have to think about Deebo Samuel and that whole situation as well. Let's circle back to Matt Stafford, because we're now hearing that the list of teams that are interested in Stafford is growing, hearing the Giants, the Raiders, all of that. And Ryan, when we were talking about this off camera, it's still the question that we're coming back to is why would the Rams want to even move on from him in the first place?
Jacqueline, I don't have an answer for that. Pete, we've talked about it this week. Does it make sense to you? Because Jimmy G is not the solution. They have Stetson Bennett on the roster. I can't imagine that's going to be the plan either. Why wouldn't you pay or find a way to pay Matthew Stafford whatever he wants, even if it's a 5 and a 0 with a comma next to it?
It makes no sense at all for the Rams to allow him to walk out the building. Look, they were within a whisker of beating the Eagles in the playoffs in large part because Matt Stafford brought them back. He's the guy that brought them back in that game.
Right.
So why would you get rid of him? It's not going to cost you that much more money. You could probably get him on a 3-year deal, make the average go up $10 million a year. That's not a lot of money. He's going to be around till he's 40. You still have a chance to win a division. You still have a chance to get to a Super Bowl. Don't give up on him. It makes no sense. And so I don't understand the Rams thinking here at all. And I can understand the thinking of the other teams who don't have a quarterback. If you can go get a guy like him,
right,
you go get him. So Rams would be making a major mistake in my mind if they let Matt Stafford
because
leave.
Aaron Rodgers isn't better than Matthew Stafford. Sam Darnold isn't better than Matthew Stafford.
None of them are.
You just keep the guy you have.
Nobody in the draft is. If you wanted to trade up and get one of them, he's the best option for the Rams to win now. And I think the Rams would be making a major mistake if they let him leave.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a franchise quarterback, that makes all the difference. And we certainly saw that with the Commanders over this past season. And Pete, I know you spoke with Dan Quinn. So what did he tell you about how the Commanders are going to do this all over again, right? It was this Cinderella story with Jaden Daniels. They get to the NFC Championship game. So how are they going to stay consistent? What was his message to you when you talked about that?
Well, I think it starts with the coach and the quarterback. It always does. And Dan Quinn is one of those guys. He got an A+ rating in the NFLPA survey. The players love him. And I think the culture has been established there. It's one of those buildings where guys want to play now. You have a great quarterback. You want to go play for him. You have a guy in Dan Quinn who has great respect from the players. You want to go play for him. So they have a lot of money. They have a franchise quarterback. They got a coach people like. They got a general manager who does a good job. They're going to be around for a long time because of Jaden Daniels. And he talked about, the sophomore slump and what that might mean. There's not going to be a sophomore slump if you work at it and stay true to the process. And that's what Dan Quinn said. They might have exceeded expectations last year.
Of course.
Puts them into a time frame that maybe is sped up a little bit. It makes it tougher to do it again. But I think this team is going to be around because of that quarterback and that coach.
And it's funny, Pete, because a year ago, Bobby Slowick was mentioned as a head coaching candidate because of what he and C.J. Stroud did together. Bobby Slowick was relieved of his duties a few months ago because he and C.J. Stroud weren't on the same page. And it wasn't necessarily a relationship in which it was a divisive relationship. It just wasn't working. I don't think that'll be the case with Cliff Kingsbury, who seems to be on the same page with Jaden Daniels and got the most out of him. And to your other point, and I think D'Amico Ryan's like Dan Campbell in that the team buys in to what he's selling. It also, Jacqueline, this is great news for Jacksonville Jaguars. If you get the quarterback right and you get the draft right and you have the ownership and the leadership in place, you can turn things around pretty quickly.
Yeah, Pete, we know Pete's a big T-Law guy. I'm a big T-Law gal. He's shaking his head because
it's not his name. It's Trevor Lawrence.
It's T-Law, Pete. That's what the next generation of Jacksonville Jaguars fans calls him. We can agree to disagree. Pete, Ryan, we certainly appreciate it, bringing us such great stuff out of the Combine out in Indianapolis, and they're going to be there all week long with coverage, getting a look at this upcoming schedule. It all kicks off with the D-line and linebackers on Thursday, and then, of course, Saturday, all eyes are going to be on the quarterbacks, the receivers, the running backs. Shador Sanders is not going to throw. Ashton Genty is not going to work out either. Sunday, it is all about the guys up front in the O-line. And again, we have a full crew out there in Indy, and we will continue to bring you coverage right here on HQ.